How do you get your training right for 2026? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you two examples. I'm going to talk about planning to plan, and then I'm going to take you briefly through one of my training blocks, the October training block. These videos are part of my Coach Athlete series. They're member videos. If you want to become a member, head over to the channel's homepage, click on the membership tab, and you'll get access to these videos. So let's get started with planning to plan. How did your last season go, and how is that going to affect your training planning for the next training year? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at in this particular video. You've got to look back before you can go forward. You really need to focus on how the training was planned. Look at the number of competitions you did as well. How many did you need to get to peak condition? And then were you able to maintain your peak condition? What you need to do is work back from the key competitions of the season. Looking back at how you did in the previous season and where your peaks were will enable you to better understand how to plan your training for the subsequent training year. Work out historically how many competitions it takes you to get to peak form for the indoor season and the outdoor season, and then use that as a mechanism to plan your competitions for the following training year. It sounds quite simple, doesn't it? But often people make the mistake of forgetting what happened the previous year and go straight into the next training year without the planning and the analysis that will enable them to better themselves technically. Work out what worked in the previous year and what you need to work on in the subsequent year. Now, I recently made a video on Yasmin, the Turkish long jumper that I coach, who jumped at 6 meters 30 in the last season, and we've looked at what made her improve and how we improved it and what we need to do in order to continue that level of improvement. We talked through the various things that we think we need to focus on in order to bring about change, and also the things that we don't need to focus on as well. And we identified a couple of areas that we're going to include that we learned from the previous training year to include in the subsequent training year. So for example, we're going to do slightly longer running. Now you'll know if you're a regular channel viewer that I don't include that much over distance running in my coaching of long and triple jumpers in particular. I will include more running in the 60 to 100 meter range so that she can learn to open up and hold her sprinting style. At the end of the day, you've got to work out what works for you or the athletes you coach. And therefore, you've got to study, film, analyse, look at all the factors that impinge on developing your specific qualities or the qualities of the athlete that you're working with. Underpinning all of this, of course, is your training philosophy. As a coach, you need to have a philosophy that you believe in, that you trust, that will deliver the program that's going to work. So for example, for me, it's always being specific, never stepping too far back from what the needs of the event are. So for example, lots of speed work, lots of takeoff work, development work for the long jump, for example. Right, let's move on to the first training block. This is an overview and part of the Coach Athlete video. And in that, you'll get full access to the current training plan and much more detailed analysis of the particular sessions in this crucial training block. I'm going to take you through the current training block October. Now I'm going to go through my various workouts and sessions as I normally do, and you'll be able to study the content as well in your own time, because I will post, or indeed I have already posted, the plans in the community section of the channel. Now this is block number 1 of my 10 blocks, and each one progressively lifts the specific qualities required of the jumpers across the training blocks on an undulating method. So we start at a relatively high intensity in week 1 and then progress throughout the training blocks. However, the progression is not linear, it's curvilinear or wavy. So we're always just going up and down across what I call a median line of performance. The idea is that each block lifts performance, albeit on occasions we'll go back a little bit to go forwards, go back a bit to go forwards, but generally everything is going forwards in terms of developing greater rate of force development, greater speed and technical proficiency, for example. Okay, let's take a look at the training plan. Now, as usual, when I do these types of videos, I'm not going to go through every specific workout. Now what happens across this block of training is that the session content varies. It's not the same every session. So we start with progressive units and that applies to all the sessions. So basics, for example, unit 1. Unit 2 becomes slightly more active, dynamic, with more moving forwards drills in this case. As you can see, marching drill, walking, running, forward lunges, and a takeoff walk holding a bar overhead. So I'm always changing the inflections of the drills across the blocks and within the units so that the athletes don't get comfortable doing the same work all the time. They have to put their brains into movement. The second unit, as you'll see here, is restricted arm action drills. Now I've noted a progression where we go from hands on hips to a bar overhead. If you run longer and slower, then your mechanics are going to be affected. This also means that when we start to go faster, 95, 100%, there's going to be less likelihood of stress and strain on the body because it will be used to moving fast. Part 2 of this session is step bridge work, so running up steps, straight leg jumps up the steps, hopping up the steps, double foot jumps upstairs, free leg landing movement upstairs, and crucially jumping down the stairs. Now I've talked about this in the past. All this workout is designed to do really is increase base power, or well, in some respects quite specific power, particularly with the down movements. When you drop down steps, for example, consecutively, you're really loading the body eccentrically, and that eccentric capacity is crucial for the takeoff in long jump, triple jump, between the phases, for example. And of course, when you're sprinting, there is a part session, or should I say more like 3/4 of a workout, if that makes any kind of sense, at the end of the hills and drills. But there is a more dedicated S&C session that takes place midweek potentially. And here it is, workout 3. So we've got cleans from the floor, you can see the weights, etc. in your own time, step ups, alternating weekly with different movements where the thigh is used and where it's not. So we're looking at overall athleticism, plus you don't want to build up too much muscle on your upper body, as of course you have to be able to lift that off of the ground. All these sessions tend to have a complex contrast basis, drop jumps, drop and block jumps, and elastic band jumps. I also mentioned that we were going to consider tests, and we start testing quite early on. And the tests that we are utilising do vary across the training year, but they are relevant to the training we are doing and relevant to the way that I construct the training programme. So the current tests we're utilising are standing long jump, standing triple jump, standing 4 bounds and a jump, and fly 10 metres. Now I did make a video on the subject of testing, so do check that one out. These 2 snippets from my Coach Athlete member videos will give you a good idea as to the type of content that I produce for the videos in that area. If you do want to find out more, as I said earlier, head over to the channel's homepage, click on the membership button, and you'll be taken through to the Coach Athlete offering. As usual, many thanks for your support, and do like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.